The night was cool, and the sound of a distant whistle echoed through the valley as the train slowly arrived at the small station. Rami stood with his travel bag in hand, watching the lights approach. He liked traveling at night. Something about the stars above and the quiet world around always gave him peace. He was not sure where this journey would lead, but he knew he wanted to feel the road beneath his feet and see places he had never seen before. When the train stopped, only a few people climbed aboard. It was not crowded, and most of the seats remained empty. Rami walked slowly down the aisle, glancing at the windows. The world outside was dark, but inside the train the soft yellow lamps glowed, giving a calm feeling. He noticed a girl sitting near the window a few rows ahead. She was not busy with a phone like most people. Instead, she held a notebook open on her lap and moved her pencil gently across the page. Her hair fell slightly forward as she leaned closer to her drawing, and the faint smile on her face showed she was lost in her own world. Rami quietly chose a seat nearby but not too close, because he did not want to disturb her. He placed his bag beside him and leaned back, listening to the soft hum of the engine as the train began to move again. The motion of the wheels created a steady rhythm, almost like a lullaby, carrying the train into the night. For a while, Rami simply stared outside. The stars appeared through the moving glass, and sometimes the shadow of a hill passed by. He felt calm but also a little lonely. Traveling often gave him that feeling. He saw many faces but rarely spoke with them. Everyone was busy, everyone rushing somewhere, and connections were rare. He looked again at the girl. She turned a page in her notebook and began another sketch. He could not see the picture clearly, but he admired her focus. There was something peaceful about the way she moved the pencil, as if she was capturing more than just shapes. The train grew quieter as some passengers closed their eyes to sleep. Rami folded his arms and tried to rest, but he kept glancing toward the girl. He wondered what she was drawing, and why she chose to travel this late. But he did not speak. Instead, he let the silence wrap around him, waiting for the right moment. After an hour, the train entered a long tunnel. The windows turned completely black, and only the lamps inside gave light. The sound changed too. The echo of the train's wheels bounced off the tunnel walls, creating a hollow rhythm. Suddenly, the train slowed down and came to a stop inside the tunnel. The silence felt heavier now. Passengers shifted in their seats, surprised by the pause. Some looked around, but no one said much. Rami leaned forward, curious. Then he heard something soft. It was not the sound of the train. It was a whisper. He looked carefully and realized the girl near the window was speaking very quietly, almost to herself, while her pencil still touched the page. He could not catch the words, but her voice was gentle, like a song half hidden in the dark. The moment felt strange and magical. The train had stopped, the tunnel surrounded them in complete shadow, and the only clear thing was her quiet whisper. Rami smiled faintly. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. But in that still moment, inside the silent tunnel, he felt something unusual, the beginning of a connection, waiting to be discovered. And though he said nothing yet, he knew the night had just turned into something unforgettable. The train remained still inside the tunnel. The air was quiet, almost heavy, and only the soft hum of the lamps above filled the silence. Some passengers sighed and leaned back into their seats. A few pulled their coats tighter and tried to rest again. But for Rami, sleep was far from his mind. His eyes returned to the girl near the window. Her head was bent low, her hand moving gently across her notebook. And again, he heard it, the whisper. It was soft, like a breeze touching the edge of his ear. At first, he thought she was speaking to someone nearby. But when he looked closely, he realized she was alone in her row. Her lips moved slowly, and her words seemed meant for no one but herself. Curiosity stirred inside him. He leaned a little forward. "Excuse me," he said in a calm voice. The girl froze. Her pencil paused in mid-line. Slowly, she turned her head, her eyes catching his. In the dim yellow light, they looked wide and unsure, like she had been caught in a secret. Rami gave a small smile, careful not to alarm her. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he added. I heard you whisper. Were you speaking?" For a moment, she hesitated. Then, in a voice as soft as the whisper itself, she replied, "I was talking to my drawing." Rami blinked, surprised but not in a mocking way. Instead, he felt a quiet interest. "To your drawing?" he repeated. She nodded slowly, a faint color rising to her cheeks. "Sometimes I describe what I see, so I don't lose it. The tunnel is dark, but in my mind, I can see lights, sparks, shapes. I say them out loud while I draw." She looked down, almost shy. "It helps me keep the picture alive." Rami leaned back, thoughtful. He had never heard anyone explain something like that before. Most people would see only a wall of stone and shadows in a tunnel, but she was finding light where none existed. "That's different," he said softly. "But beautiful." Her eyes lifted again, a little surprise showing in them. Many times in her life, people had laughed at her odd habits. But Rami's voice carried no laughter, only respect. "What are you drawing now?" he asked. Slowly, she turned the notebook toward him. The pencil marks formed arches of stone, rough and wide, just like the tunnel around them. But across the page, she had drawn tiny strokes of white and gold, glowing dots that seemed to dance along the ceiling. "I imagine there are hidden stars here," she explained, her voice still low but steadier now. "Places like this shouldn't be only shadows. I give them a little light." Rami stared at the picture for a long moment. It was simple, but it carried warmth. "You make the dark less lonely," he said. The girl smiled for the first time, small but real. "Maybe," she whispered. A silence followed, but it was no longer heavy. It was gentle, like a pause between two lines of a poem. Rami felt something shift inside him. He had sat on many trains before, seen countless strangers, but never had he felt such a sudden pull toward someone. "What's your name?" he asked carefully. "Myra," she answered, her voice barely above the soft rumble that echoed faintly in the tunnel. Rami nodded. "I'm Rami." Myra repeated his name quietly, as though testing how it sounded. Then she closed her notebook halfway, resting it on her lap. For the first time, she looked at him fully, not just with quick glances. The tunnel seemed to stretch forever, keeping the train in place, as though giving them time meant only for this moment. Rami smiled again, his tone light. "Well, Myra, I'm glad the train stopped. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heard your whisper." She gave a soft laugh, the kind that was both shy and sincere. "And I wouldn't have answered." The lamps flickered slightly, and a faint announcement crackled from the speakers, though the words were unclear. The train was still not moving. But neither of them minded. For Rami and Myra, the pause in the tunnel had already become something more than a delay. It was the first spark of a story waiting to unfold. The tunnel outside remained quiet, holding the train in stillness. The dim yellow lamps flickered softly, painting gentle shadows on the walls of the cabin. For Rami and Myra, the silence had changed. It no longer felt heavy or strange. It felt like a secret space that belonged only to them. Myra rested her notebook on her lap, her pencil still caught between her fingers. Rami sat a little straighter, turning slightly toward her, curious about the girl who found stars inside stone walls. So, Rami began carefully, you draw tunnels and whisper to them. Is that your hobby, or is it something more? Myra thought for a moment. I think it's both. Drawing is a hobby, yes. But it's also how I understand the world. When I see something, I don't just want to pass by. I want to keep it, to remember it, to feel it again. A picture lets me do that. Her words came softly, but they carried weight. Rami listened with interest. He had met many people during his travels, but few spoke about life in this way. Most talked about work, money, or plans. Myra spoke about feelings and moments. And you? She asked, tilting her head slightly. Why are you traveling so late at night? Not many people choose these empty hours. Rami gave a small laugh, though it was gentle, not loud. I suppose I like the silence. When the world sleeps, I feel like I can breathe more freely. I travel to see places, to meet new faces, to find something, though I'm not sure what that something is. Myra's eyes stayed on him. Maybe you're looking for meaning. Her words surprised him. He leaned back, thoughtful. Maybe, he admitted. I never thought about it in that way. I just keep moving, hoping I'll know it when I see it. Myra nodded slowly. She understood. For a moment, she looked down at her notebook again, tracing one of the pencil lines with her finger. Sometimes, she said softly, we look for something far away. But then, we find it in a place we never expected. Even inside a tunnel. Her words lingered between them. Rami felt his chest grow warm, not from the train's air but from her quiet wisdom. She was right. Sometimes meaning appeared in simple, sudden places like in the voice of a stranger. Rami leaned forward a little. Have you always drawn? Since you were small. Myra smiled faintly, as though the memory touched her heart. Yes. When I was a child, I used to draw on scraps of paper. My parents thought it was just play, but it stayed with me. Even now, if I don't draw for some days, I feel empty. And what do you like to draw the most? Rami asked. Not people, she answered with a small laugh. I'm not good at faces. I like places. Forgotten corners, quiet streets, empty benches in the park, things that others walk past without noticing. That's interesting, Rami said sincerely. You see what others miss. Her cheeks warmed slightly at the kindness in his voice. She was not used to being seen like this. Most people never cared about her drawings, or they found them strange. But Rami listened as though every word mattered. They both fell into a short silence. But this silence was not empty. It felt soft, like a blanket covering them. Rami glanced at the other passengers. Most were resting, not paying attention. It almost felt like the train had left only the two of them awake. To break the pause, Myra asked, and you, Rami? Do you keep anything the way I keep drawings? Rami thought carefully. I keep memories. I don't write them or draw them, but I carry them here, he said, pressing his hand lightly against his chest. Every place I see, every person I meet, it stays inside. Even if I don't understand it right away. Myra studied him for a moment, then smiled gently. So you are also an artist. But with memories instead of paper. The thought made Rami chuckle, but he liked it. Maybe you're right. The train gave a small shudder, as though testing its wheels again, but it did not move. The lamps flickered once more, and the echo of silence deepened. Inside that pause, Myra turned her notebook back toward him. Would you like me to draw something for you? She asked softly. Rami's eyes widened a little. For me? She nodded. Yes. Not now, maybe. But before the train leaves the tunnel, I'll give you something. A picture. So you won't forget this night. Rami felt a warmth rise inside him. He wanted to say something clever, but all he managed was a quiet, I'd like that. For the first time in a long time, he felt he had found more than just another stop in his journey. In the stillness of the tunnel, with Myra by the window and her notebook in hand, he felt he was finally beginning to see the something he had been searching for all along. The train still rested inside the tunnel, as if time itself had paused for them. Most passengers were half asleep or lost in their own thoughts. But for Rami and Myra, the moment was alive, bright, and full of quiet meaning. Myra leaned against the window, holding her notebook close to her chest. She wasn't drawing now. She was just looking at Rami, though her eyes dropped shyly whenever he caught her gaze. Rami sat with his arms resting on his knees, slightly leaning forward, giving her his full attention. You know, Myra said softly, I don't usually talk much when I travel. People don't notice me most of the time. Rami tilted his head, surprised. They don't notice you. She nodded. I'm always the quiet one. In school, in groups, even with friends. I'm there, but somehow, invisible. People remember louder voices, brighter faces. But not me. Her voice carried no anger, only honesty. Rami's eyes softened. Then they were not looking properly, he said. Because you are not invisible. Her cheeks warmed at his words. She looked down at her notebook, tracing the edge of the page with her finger. You notice me now, she whispered. Yes, Rami replied, without hesitation. From the moment I stepped onto this train. I saw you sketching, so focused, like the world outside was waiting for your pencil. I thought to myself, here is someone who sees what others don't. And I was right. Myra blinked, startled by his sincerity. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to her with such gentle truth. She felt her chest grow lighter, as if a hidden door had opened inside her. She tried to change the subject, but her smile betrayed her. And what about you, Rami? You speak so easily. People must notice you wherever you go. Rami gave a soft laugh, shaking his head. Not really. I travel often, yes, but I rarely stay long enough for people to remember me. I'm always moving, never staying. Sometimes I wonder if I am just another face passing by, nothing more. Myra studied him closely. For the first time, she noticed the quiet sadness beneath his smile. He seemed free, yet she sensed a longing in him, a wish to belong somewhere, or to someone. You're not just another face, she said quietly. You listen. That already makes you different. Their eyes met in the soft glow of the lamp. It was a simple exchange of words, but it felt heavier than anything they had spoken before. Rami felt a pull toward her, as though the tunnel itself had brought them together to hear these truths. The silence stretched again, but it was not uncomfortable. It was deep, like a space where two hearts could breathe together. Myra opened her notebook slowly and drew a small line, just to calm her hands. "Do you ever feel," she asked softly, "that the world moves too fast? That people rush so quickly they forget to see the small things?" "All the time," Rami answered. "That's why I like nights like this. When the train stops, when there is nothing but silence. It gives me time to see. To hear." Myra's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Maybe that's why we met here. The world had to stop moving for us to notice each other." Her words sank into Rami's heart. He wanted to reply, but no words seemed enough. Instead, he simply nodded, his eyes holding hers. For a moment, the tunnel around them disappeared. There were no walls, no lamps, no still train. There was only the quiet space between them, filling with something unspoken but very real. Myra lowered her eyes again, but her smile lingered. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of being seen, truly seen. And it scared her a little, but it also warmed her in a way she didn't want to lose. Rami leaned back, his thoughts running quietly. He realized he had traveled many roads searching for something unknown. Tonight, in the stillness of a train tunnel, he might have found it, not a place, not a goal, but a person. The loudspeaker crackled faintly, announcing that the delay would continue a little longer. Passengers sighed again, some frustrated. But Rami and Myra exchanged a look of understanding. Neither of them minded the delay. For them, the tunnel was no longer just stone and darkness. It had become a bridge, a place where two invisible paths had crossed, finally touching. And in that unseen connection, a new journey had quietly begun. A soft crackle came from the train's loudspeaker. The voice of the conductor, calm but tired, echoed through the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. There is a technical issue ahead. We expect to move soon, but until then, passengers may step out carefully if they wish. Please remain near the train." The announcement brought small movements through the quiet cabin. Some passengers stretched their legs, others stayed seated. A few began gathering coats and scarves, curious to breathe the air outside. Rami looked at Myra. Her eyes were already turned toward the window, where the faint reflection of the lamps showed stone walls outside. She seemed both hesitant and curious. "Would you like to step out for a while?" Rami asked softly. Myra blinked, then gave a small nod. "Yes. I'd like to see the tunnel, not just draw it." They rose from their seats and joined a few other passengers moving slowly toward the doors. The train staff guided them carefully, warning them to watch their step. The moment Rami stepped onto the ground, he felt the cool air of the tunnel wrap around him. It smelled of stone, dust, and something old, like history hidden in the earth. The walls stretched tall on both sides, rough and gray, with tiny drops of water glistening where the lamps reached. Myra stepped down beside him, holding her notebook close. Her eyes were wide, shining with wonder. "It feels different out here," she whispered. "It does," Rami agreed. "It feels like walking into another world." They moved a little away from the train, staying close to the dim lights that hung from the carriage. Their footsteps echoed softly against the stone floor, each sound bouncing back to them. Myra reached out her hand and touched the tunnel wall. Her fingers brushed over the cool, rough surface. "It's strange," she said. "When I draw, I imagine smooth arches and hidden stars. But when I touch it, it feels hard, silent, almost sad." Rami shone the small flashlight he carried from his bag, letting the beam slide across the wall. The light made tiny crystals sparkle in the rock, like secret gems waiting to be found. "Not sad," he said gently. "Just waiting for someone to notice." Myra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the light. She gave a soft smile. "Maybe you're right." They walked slowly, side by side, their steps in rhythm. Around them, the tunnel seemed endless, stretching into shadow. The train behind stood still, its lamps glowing faintly like a quiet ship in a dark harbor. For a moment, they stopped walking and just listened. The silence was deep, but it carried a heartbeat, the echo of their steps, the faint drop of water, and the quiet sound of their breaths. "It feels like we're the only two people left in the world," Myra said softly. Rami looked at her. "Would that be such a bad thing?" She met his gaze, and for a second, she didn't answer. Her smile grew faint but warm. "No," she whispered. The words stayed between them, soft and steady. They continued walking a little further, not too far from the train, but far enough to feel free from the rest of the passengers. Myra opened her notebook again and began sketching quickly. The beam of Rami's flashlight gave her just enough light. "What are you drawing now?" he asked. "Not the tunnel," she replied. "Not exactly. I'm drawing this moment." He leaned closer to see. On the page, her pencil formed two small figures standing side by side beneath a tall arch of stone. The details were simple, but the feeling was clear. Two people, sharing light in a place of shadow. Rami felt his heart stir. "That's us," he said softly. Myra's cheeks colored, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she closed the notebook gently and hugged it against her chest. They stood in silence again, but this silence was different. It was not empty or heavy. It was full, like a pause between words that didn't need to be spoken aloud. After a while, the conductor's voice called out again, asking passengers to return to the train. Slowly, Rami and Myra walked back. Their steps echoed once more, softer now, as if the tunnel itself wanted to keep their secret safe. As they climbed back into the carriage and took their seats, Rami glanced at Myra. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For sharing the tunnel with me." Myra smiled, her eyes shining with gentle light. "And thank you for noticing me in it." The train still waited, but for both of them, the journey had already moved forward deeper than the tracks could ever go. The train doors closed again, and one by one the passengers returned to their seats. A soft announcement followed, but the train still did not move. The tunnel remained quiet, holding the night in its stone walls. Rami and Myra sat side by side now, not across the aisle as before. They had chosen seats closer together when they came back in, as if the short walk had erased the invisible distance between them. Myra placed her notebook on her lap, her fingers resting lightly on its cover. She glanced at Rami, her eyes soft and thoughtful. "I feel like when the train leaves the tunnel, this moment will disappear," she said quietly. Rami turned toward her. "Disappear?" "Yes," she whispered. "When the light comes back, and people go their own way, maybe this night will fade, like a dream." Rami shook his head slowly. "Not for me. I'll remember it. I'll remember you." Myra's eyes lowered, her lashes brushing her cheeks. "But what if we never meet again? What if this is only a pause between two strangers?" Rami thought carefully. His journeys had always been full of short meetings, faces that came and went, names that slipped away. But this felt different. Myra felt different. He leaned closer, his voice steady. Then let's promise it won't end here. Myra looked up, surprised. Promise. Yes. His words were calm but sure. Even if we leave the train tomorrow, we'll find each other again. Maybe not by chance, maybe not by luck but by choice. She studied him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. But all she found was quiet honesty in his eyes. Her chest warmed, and for a moment she forgot the heavy shadows of the tunnel. I don't usually make promises, she admitted softly. But tonight, I think I want to. Rami smiled. Then promise me we'll meet again, outside this tunnel. She nodded slowly, her lips curving into a small, tender smile. I promise. The words were simple, but they filled the air between them with something strong, something unshakable. The tunnel seemed to listen, as though sealing their vow in its walls. For a while, they sat in silence again. Myra opened her notebook and turned to a blank page. She began to sketch quickly, her hand moving with new energy. Rami leaned slightly to watch. What is it this time? He asked. You'll see, she answered, her voice carrying a playful tone. After a few minutes, she turned the notebook toward him. On the page, she had drawn two figures sitting close together in a train cabin. Outside the window, there was only darkness, but above them she had sketched a faint glow, as though a hidden light followed them wherever they went. Rami stared at the picture. It was simple, but it captured exactly how he felt, two people sitting in the middle of shadows, yet finding light in each other. It's us, Myra said softly. Rami nodded, his chest tightening with emotion. Yes. It's us. He wanted to say more, but the words refused to come. Instead, he simply looked at her, and she looked back. Their eyes spoke what their mouths could not. The train gave a small shake, as if preparing to move. A faint rumble ran through the floor. Myra closed her notebook quickly and held it close, her fingers pressing firmly on the cover. See, she whispered. The moment is leaving. Rami shook his head gently. No, Myra. The tunnel is ending, but the moment is not. Because it's already inside us. Her lips parted as if to reply, but she stayed silent, only nodding slowly. She understood. The train shuddered again, the engine humming louder. The tunnel's air grew restless, like a breath about to be released. Rami leaned closer one last time before the movement began. His voice was low, almost blending with the sound of the engine. When we step out of this tunnel, remember your promise. And I'll remember mine. Myra met his eyes, her face calm and steady now. I will. And in that dark cabin, surrounded by stone walls and flickering lamps, a promise was born, fragile like paper, but strong enough to last beyond the night. The whistle blew, sharp and clear, breaking the silence. The train slowly began to move forward, carrying them both toward the light that waited at the tunnel's end. But neither of them feared the end of the darkness anymore. They had found something brighter than light, hidden in the quiet heart of the tunnel. The train moved steadily, its wheels clicking softly against the tracks. The tunnel walls, gray and cold, began to fade behind them. Small spots of light appeared ahead, growing brighter with every second. The darkness that had wrapped Rami and Myra in its quiet embrace was slowly giving way to dawn. Myra pressed her notebook to her chest, feeling its weight like a treasure. She looked at Rami, whose eyes were fixed on the approaching light, yet held a calm, almost gentle anticipation. For both of them, the tunnel had been more than a passage, it had been a place where time paused, where hearts spoke without words, and where two strangers had discovered something rare. The first rays of the morning sun broke through the tunnel's end, touching the cabin with gold. Rami blinked, shielding his eyes, and Myra turned her face toward the light. The warmth of the sun contrasted sharply with the cool shadows they had left behind. "Look," Myra whispered, pointing to the window. The valley ahead spread out in rolling hills, dotted with small rivers and trees bathed in early sunlight. It was beautiful, but it felt almost ordinary compared to what they had shared in the tunnel. Rami smiled. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "But nothing can compare to the light inside the tunnel." Myra laughed quietly, a sound of pure joy. "Inside the tunnel?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "Because that's where I met you. That's where this all began." She turned to look at him fully now, her eyes reflecting the golden light. She felt a flutter in her chest, a warmth she could not name. It was a mix of hope, excitement, and the quiet certainty that something important had started between them. The train slowed as it left the tunnel completely, the last shadows disappearing behind them. Passengers stirred, waking fully, stretching, and whispering about the morning view. But Rami and Myra remained in their own world. They did not need to speak. The promise they had made in the dark hung silently between them, stronger than any spoken word. Rami reached into his bag and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to Myra without saying anything. She took it, curious, and opened it carefully. Inside was a simple note: "Meet me where light always finds us." Her cheeks warmed as she looked up at him. "Is this a promise?" she asked. Rami nodded, his lips curving into a small, confident smile. "A promise," he said softly. "And I intend to keep it." The train rolled on, leaving the tunnel behind completely. Outside, the world was waking up. Birds flew above, rivers sparkled, and the air smelled of earth and grass. Myra pressed the envelope to her heart. She felt a mix of happiness and anticipation, as if the tunnel had given her a gift she would carry forever. Rami watched her quietly, noticing the small movements, the way her fingers clutched the notebook, the slight tilt of her head when she thought no one was looking. He realized how rare this moment was, two people finding a quiet, unspoken connection in a world that often moved too fast. "I'll see you again, won't I?" Myra asked after a long pause, her voice gentle but full of hope. "You will," Rami replied without hesitation. "I'll find you. And you'll find me. We'll meet where light always finds us." She smiled again, this time fully and freely, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes and lingers in the heart. The train hummed beneath them, carrying them forward, but the weight of the tunnel's shadows seemed to stay with them as a soft, invisible bond. The morning sun climbed higher, flooding the cabin with warmth. Passengers chatted quietly, but Rami and Myra stayed silent, content to watch the world pass by together. No one else needed to know the story of the tunnel, the whispers, the sketches, the shared moments of understanding and trust. That story belonged to them alone. As the train approached the next station, Rami and Myra prepared to leave, but neither felt nervous or afraid. Instead, there was a quiet certainty between them, a calm promise that this journey was only the beginning. The tunnel had shown them what could happen when hearts truly notice each other. The doors opened, and sunlight spilled into the cabin. Rami extended his hand gently, and Myra took it, feeling the warmth of his touch. Together, they stepped out onto the platform, leaving the train behind but carrying the memory of the tunnel with them forever. And in that morning light, they knew one thing clearly: the end of the tunnel was only the start of their journey together.